Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. It is time for our great friend Dave Pezzo to join us from the Pezzo Center. Pezzo Financial, Facebook, Twitter. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin.
Now, what's the big news financially? What should we be looking forward to this week as we get ready to start really the long shift towards the end of 2018?
Earnings right now. And I know that sounds just boring as watching paint dry. We want to watch, the stock market bounce back and forth, but it does that. But when you are really looking for news, you're looking for the fundamentals. Are the fundamentals good? And of course, company to company, there's lots of reasons to either love a company or hate a company's quarterly numbers. But overall, again, corporations are going to grow this quarter by 20% again. And it's just phenomenal corporate tax cuts, as well as the fact that these companies are growing rapidly all over the world, and that is really showing up in the numbers. The cash flow, the dividends are being increased. It's a fantastic story fundamentally for the market, even though we're in a time of high volatility.
Right. It hasn't been good for the market lately. Now, has it, Dave?
No.
I've been waiting how many years?
8 years. Actually, periodically you've been able to give me a little bit of stuff.
Right,
yeah.
but it's kind of like that team against the Harlem Globetrotters. And you would be the Harlem Globetrotters, like the Washington Generals, if you will. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. One of the big stories that came out last week, the end of Sears. Looking at the cover of Fortune magazine, they're saying Sears is in trouble, but Kmart is in even deeper trouble. What I don't understand is when we were growing up, and kids, you can Google this, you can YouTube this, Kmart had such a dominant position in the market. And then you had this guy out of Arkansas who came up with Walmart, and then it grew, primarily a family business. Then he went public and such. Mm-hmm. But how in the world can you go from dominating, almost similar to Yahoo and Google, but I think the Walmart Kmart example is much more extreme. How did that happen?
It's Kmart, Sears, you mean? I think because Kmart was a separate store,
right? But no, yeah, and I just threw Sears out there. But
okay.
And you could argue Sears just as dominant, and we'll get to Sears in a second. But I mean, as kids growing up, the blue light special, Kmart's were everywhere.
Yeah,
Kmart seemed to be just kind of like Montgomery Ward, another retailer.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, Walmart comes along and slowly builds. And I can remember living in parts of the country where, Walmart's coming in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And from a business perspective, as a man who studies business, did they reinvent the wheel? Did they do something different?
Yeah, they did. They did a lot of things differently, right? They really started having, for everything from the very front, when somebody comes in your store, right, they have a greeter. And it seems like, what's the big deal about that? Think back of the days when we had a greeter, sort of. It was a front store manager at every Albertsons. They owned their own store. You know what I mean? It was something that they wanted to get to know the customers. They got bonus. They got paid based on how their store performed, and they took ownership of that store. I still think they do to a degree, but things are not the same as they used to be, where you really had that friendly feeling.
Sure.
And instead of you're just going to go in and try to find all the stuff on your own, you're not going to find much help. So I think they did that, number one. Number two, they did drive prices down. And so instead of just a blue light special, everything was on blue light special throughout the stores. So they were cleaner, they were nicer, they had just a different look when they came in. And yes, when you look at Sam Walton, and you talk to people and read about the accounts of him, he was the real deal. He really was who he seemed to be, a hardworking, just a regular guy who really built something amazing.
Indeed. Now we go to Sears.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Remember, we talked a little bit about this last week, where Sears gave us the Discover card, the first people to really go into the credit card business. Sears did so much. Kenmore, all these other appliances.
Craftsman. I mean, it just goes on. They even started Allstate, for crying out loud. Started it. They didn't buy it. They went out and started it. So this was an innovative company. And I think they just got so big and arrogant. But, Kevin, when you look at the giant retailers, that's the one that fell. They absolutely dominated the market 30, 40 years ago. And you're right. They started watching Walmart chip away at it. but really didn't answer it. They thought nothing of Walmart. They did nothing to answer Walmart. They didn't think they were of any importance at all, and let it go. And so, obviously, to their ultimate demise. It's really quite sad when you think about it. And I know we all remember the Christmas catalog, and I certainly do. I spent countless hours pouring through that darn thing every year, right? I mean, we all did, and because it was the coolest thing in the world. And it was great for our parents because they had a pretty good idea what we wanted for Christmas. So, anyway, it's a sad thing to see these big retailers go, and I know the world moves on, but sometimes they impact your memories in a way that make you very sad to see it go.
Well, it's amazing that in just, the last 5 years, and maybe it's because of the growth of the phones, that we're very used to, if we want something, we just go to Amazon.
Yeah, we do. I know.
We don't go to the store. We don't do anything. We just go to Amazon.
Yeah, it was Walmart, and then ultimately the final thrust here, if you will, was Amazon. It absolutely killed them.
Well, and then you have Walmart having their own digital online presence and taking advantage of the stores, if you will, because they, and instead of waiting to get it mailed, possibly. I mean, this is how indulgent we've become.
Yeah.
You can get something online, and you can have it within hours because Walmart has it at the store.
Yeah, I completely agree. Kevin, actually, for me personally, what I've avoided doing is somehow it's not becoming a Prime member and things like that, because I just don't want to succumb to this idea, because I think you just go down this path. You can't. Then you have to have it in an hour pretty soon, right?
Once you go Prime.
Once you go Prime, you can't go back. I hear, yeah.
And that's an interesting facet, because you have a battle. And by the way, if you'd like to talk media or money or what have you with Dave Petzo, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. They say the one company that really Netflix can't take over is Amazon, because they have the Amazon Prime. And remember, this was like 6 years ago. We were talking about the Kindle, and I'm saying to you, well, look, with my Prime membership, I get this, this, and this,
right,
as opposed to paying for Netflix. Now, some people have Netflix and Hulu and all these other things.
And Prime, yeah.
And Prime. But think of how brilliant Amazon is. Okay, Prime costs you $100 a year, maybe 120, whatever. We're big time. Yeah. What's $100, right?
Right.
In that, you get movies, you get old HBO shows. So digitally, it pays off. But then you get free shipping.
Right.
So even if you just ship a couple things, it pays for itself. Of course, that's like the Costco credit card. It pays for itself.
Right.
But you have to buy things there.
Yes.
Never mind, and now going into food business, Amazon continues to morph.
Yes, it does. And to the point also, and even though they lose money on some things, and this is, well, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but the tech stocks are another story today too, and and Amazon's one of them that's under attack for, if you will, Kevin, to your point, getting too big, morphing too much, getting into too many different things.
Does Amazon get it right though, because they invest everything back into the company?
I think so. Yeah, and they made that clear from the very moment they went public. This is not a new phase for them. They told everybody, look, you don't invest in us if you want to see quarterly profits. That's not what we're doing. We're building a business here.
Right.
And that's exactly what they're doing.
Speaking of tech, Micron celebrated 40 years.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Wow. 40 years. That just, that is absolutely crazy. I guess it kind of sort of says how old I am. Because I remember Micron's early days, very first days. And it is something else. It's a company, as I've mentioned before, Kevin, should not exist and would not exist in today's world. But for Jack Simplot, Yankee, Noble, and others, I'm sorry, I'm just not thinking of all of the main characters, that sat around and wrote checks as they lost money to keep the doors open for Micron in the early days. If accountants rule things today, I'm having a little bit of an argument with one of our vendors now about accountants. And I said, this is a thing over here that nobody even considers what happens to the clients because of what you did. Don't tell me you care at all about the accountants or about the clients. You only care about the fact that this is going to save the company money. And so when you think about that, the accountants are out there running these. You can't do this. Don't write the check. We need to close the doors. It never would have happened except for these industrialists just sitting around going, Jack, it's your turn to write $50,000 check. And they did and kept the doors open.
Right. I'm reading this book about these entrepreneurs, and one of them profiles J.R. Simplot, and they go to the making of Micron.
Oh, yeah.
And how in California you had to have these fancy steel things, and they're doing it with wood and all these innovative things that they could do that in Idaho. But you take a look at Micron today, as someone who has covered them for years. I mean, do they really mean so much to the local community as they did, let's say, 10 years ago?
Not even close, but no business means as much as they did 10 years ago because we're getting bigger.
Well,
and bigger.
Albertsons is coming back locally.
Albertsons
I would
is
argue
coming-
that Albertsons is the exception to the rule.
Well, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. They are bigger than they were 10 years ago. But they certainly aren't bigger than they were 20 years ago to our local economy. So things change over time, and but the reality is we are much larger area, much more diverse. So they're still big, though, Kevin. This is a very big company.
Largest private employer in the state.
Yeah.
St. Luke's is the largest public employer. Mm-hmm. So at 580-5436-580-KIDO, you remember they're going to build this multi-billion-dollar plant in Virginia. Got a lot of incentives to do it. You have the new CEO that isn't from here. In addition to that, you have a lot of stuff going to Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who has seen this before, and where I was born, rubber capital of the world, Goodyear,
Yep.
Goodrich, Mr. Firestone. Actually, there was a Mr. Firestone. General Tire.
Yeah.
They all had their headquarters there.
Yeah.
Now, most of them gone.
Yeah, they are. Things change. And
What
but
does
the
that
community,
does that mean that's going to happen to Micron?
Very well could. There's no doubt about it, Kevin. That's a big concern, especially because we have a complete turnover in the executive suite. Complete. I don't know that there's anybody there that's, let's say, from Idaho at all in the company.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. It's a feeling. You don't have that cultural feeling of loving Idaho, loving the West. These are just folks that are out of Silicon Valley, happen to run a facility that has their headquarters in Boise, Idaho. That's just the headquarters. Most of the company is outside the United States of America. There's so many facilities outside. So it is a global concern. It happens to be headquartered in Idaho, and that's always, I don't know, just one decision away from why don't we move the headquarters over to fill in the blank.
Well, that's not good.
It is not good.
Part two.
No, it's not. And it's always a fear. And so far, we're in great shape, but up until now, we have always had people who grew up in Idaho, so to speak, right? Steve Appleton and his predecessor as well. So it's not, these folks were at the beginnings of, if you will, when the company was small, very cyclical, hanging on by a thread, and they lived and loved Idaho. So there was really no concern they were going to leave.
Do you think, though, that, again, you look at Mr. Chobani. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's a guy from Turkey. He finds Twin Falls, Idaho, and falls in love with it.
Yes.
Builds the largest yogurt plant, gives money to the workers. He loves Idaho.
Yes.
He's not from Idaho. As a pro-Idaho person who came here, like a lot of folks, for the opportunities, you just wonder. Right. And no one ever brings that up because, Dave Petzo, that's uncomfortable.
Well, it is, but I'm not saying they're leaving. I don't suspect. I don't know why they would.
You're not saying that at all.
No,
I might be saying that.
I'm saying that they could.
Right.
And it's always a concern, and and any kind of a change in the industry would question. Okay, are we going to keep this fab here? Are we going to keep testing here, or do we move it all over to Singapore, which is where they also have a testing facility?
It'd be nice if they kept the testing facility here.
Without a doubt.
I know the president would agree with me on that.
Absolutely, and the tax laws have changed. People do not understand how fundamentally big that was to keeping businesses here in the United States.
I don't think the president would like Micron to move.
No.
And I might have to send him an email. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. He's back. Dave Petzo with us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So we take a look at the automobile industry, the car industry, the credit industry seems to be slowing down, or is it? Is that something to look out for at the end of the year? Obviously, this is the best time to buy a car. Home buying might take a little siesta till the spring. Your thoughts, Dave Petzo?
Yeah, I think everything is slowing down just a little bit. Now, when I mean slowing down, I don't mean It's in reverse. I mean, less growth. We're seeing a little bit of that in the housing market, not just here, but everywhere. But let's be careful with all the housing numbers, retail numbers, things like that, because of the two hurricanes. They occurred back-to-back months, and they were severe enough to set the numbers back a good piece. So I wouldn't be too excited. Let's call it in a month from now when the numbers bounce back. I'm not too worried now while the numbers are declining a little bit. But clearly, things are slowing down a little bit. Auto sales have been slowing for months, Kevin. I mean, really basically years now. And it's just a little bit slower growth. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. Why do you have to buy a car? Every year. You don't. And the cars are so good. They last so long. They're just phenomenal. And that's to the detriment of the automakers. We love our cars longer now. So it is they just last so long. And that is not meaning we're not turning cars over quite as frequently as we used to.
Right, and then we have the housing market still on fire, but I've been talking to some real estate and mortgage people lately, and they say, it's slowing down. I'm thinking to myself, well, how in the world can you keep this record pace up? It has to. We have to take a breath. In reality, somebody was sharing with me, a $600,000 house in California is, maybe a bedroom, maybe a living room, no garage, and that's about $650,000. So you sell that in California, you come here, you're living high on the hog.
Yeah. So it's not, they don't understand what you're complaining about. What do you mean affordable housing? We have real affordable housing problems.
Well, compared to the folks in California, but we take a look at the real estate market and all the building that is going on. We've got an election coming up with the folks from ACHD. Obviously, the big concern is roads and bridges and everything else. We've got a gubernatorial election coming up, roads and bridges and schools and everything else.
Yep.
And what's the plan to fix it all? And I go, Kevin, I'm all about the markets, but quality of life is one of the, if not the biggest draw here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No, people don't come here because we have the highest wages in the country. We have the best life in the country. And part of that includes affordable housing. I agree with you. I'm not saying that we have no problem. I'm just saying that people from California or Seattle, I was just in Seattle this weekend, like I often am, seeing grandkids. And it's, of course, it's a basket case anyway with all the homeless people pitching tents everywhere. But at the same time, the housing there is unbelievable to me. It's just absolutely stunning how expensive a home is in Seattle compared to Boise still. But, Kevin, we have got to continue to work on these things and try to build out ahead of it as best we can. And I do really applaud the governments here locally that I think they've done a pretty good job of staying ahead of something that really you can't plan for. And that's what have we had here? 10% growth per year for the last 5
I don't know if
years?
I don't know if they've kept up.
Barely.
Well, take a look at Meridian. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got Costco going in on Chinden Road.
Yep.
They're not going to widen it.
Right.
Chinden Road's a mess all the time.
Already. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then now Winco is sniffing, so they might be coming back. Never mind that you have a Walmart and a Fred Meyer there already. And look, progress is great, but where's the sanity here? Mm-hmm. A 2-lane highway that is already too congested, and God forbid if there's an accident or there's a fire and you can't get through.
That's true. No, and I wish they would slow it down in some of the areas like you're talking about. That's
like
one of the choke points.
Communists do.
That's yeah. Just don't let anybody else in. If you don't look like me, you can't come in. You don't think like me, you can't come in. Yeah, that's exactly right. But it's but at the same time, I agree with you at some of the choke points. They need to just slow down until we can get caught up. What I'm trying to say is, I applaud the idea that we're thinking forward on schools and as best we can infrastructure. That's a tough thing to keep up on in any community that's growing as fast as ours is.
More with Dave Petzo next. Going to talk to him about the governor's race and downtown scooters. What? Stay tuned.
Larry Gibbard.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Dave Petzo with us. So now we've got this big governor's race going on.
Yep.
I know you're a nonpartisan guy. You're a non-political guy. So we're going to ask you just how you see this race from the qualifications of both candidates. Mm-hmm. Paulette Jordan on one hand, Brad Little, Lieutenant Governor Little on the other. It's funny because Paulette Jordan's making a lot of promises, as candidates do, but I think it would be a challenge for her to work with a Republican-dominated supermajority in both the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
So now that I've led the witness, let me retract that statement and get
Yep.
your thoughts on the governor's race, what it means for us business-wise.
Well, business-wise, obviously, you're going to Brad Little, more of the same. That's exactly what we're going to get. I'm not sure more of the same from a business perspective is at all bad. Goodness gracious, the state is on fire, and continuing to attract business as well as individuals to the state. More of the same sounds like a really good idea when things are on fire. So I think from a business perspective, to answer your question directly, Brad Little is going to be great. Secondly, to kind of backtrack a little bit on your question / comment, was that who's going to be, with experience. I got to ask you this question. I have no idea what Paulette Jordan's experience really is.
Yeah, I don't know. I threw that out last week. I don't know what she does for a living, what her qualifications are.
She seems a lot like Obama to me. I'm not saying that because I don't know.
Right.
But I don't know what kind of business background she has. And when I say Obama, I mean she hasn't been a legislative leader to my knowledge. She just kind of came upon the scene and hasn't had a lot of experience at all.
But to her credit, which is fascinating to me, A.J. Belukoff.
Yeah. How did he lose?
A.J. Belukoff, self-financed, not only this time, last time, came within, I believe, 7 points of beating Butch Otter the last time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, A.J. Belukoff, you see him running at Fit One, you see him all over the place, a great community benefactor.
Yep.
Beloved in nonpartisan and Democratic Party politics. So there had to be something there that I'm not seeing with this Jordan character.
Right. Well, I think it's that far left movement, right, that we're seeing in the Democratic Party.
Could be.
All around the country, we're seeing completely unelectable people.
Right.
I'm an avowed communist. That used to be a death sentence.
I think that's a socialist.
Not, wow, I'm going to be.
Right.
They wouldn't say that, but they pretty much are. Their
Right.
agenda is totally communist. Come on, we're going to make sure nobody thinks like individuals anymore.
To her credit, though, she was outspent, not as well known.
I am not taking any of that away from her. I am just saying, you ask about experience.
Sure.
She has none to my knowledge, and I really was asking. I just don't even know what she did to make a living. I don't know really much of anything about her.
Finally, $1.6 billion. Going to be $2 billion. The lottery.
Oh, the lottery.
Your thoughts?
My thoughts. Two thoughts, okay? It is it's one of the silliest things to play. Of course, I know now the odds are okay because the chances of being hit by lightning 3 times or something like that or whatever it is in a month are now it makes sense to something that pays out $1 billion.
$2 billion.
$2 billion.
Might be $1 billion after taxes.
Correct.
Depends if you take the lump sum or the payments. I'm just doing this research for show purposes only.
Yes, and we could take that over a longer period of time. You're right. You're still going to lose half the money to taxes regardless. But at any rate, the thing I also find really fascinating and strange is that everybody wants to win the lottery, and you don't hear very many or any stories of how people are really remarkably happy after they do. A couple years down the road, it's a really strange thing that there's such this, I don't know if people are taken from a situation that they can't that they were comfortable in a situation they're not comfortable, being asked for money all the time from people, being disappointed, becoming angry. I don't know what it is, but this discontentment we have when we have so much is driving these types of wishful things that in the end you be careful what you wish for because you might get it. And I find it a fascinating thing. I want to win the lottery. And then people aren't happy. Why?
Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Next time, Dave Petzo, appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Kevin.
You're listening to Kevin Millar on KIDO Talk Radio. And blessed to be with you. Sure do thank Dave Petzo for joining us. Over 30 years here with us at KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Last week, Liberty Linda mentioned this. We were talking about a guy that got busted for carrying 117 pounds of marijuana into the state. And I always love talking to you about drugs and staying drug-free and all. And we'll get to that. But this whole Prop 1, Prop 2 issue, the Prop 1 issue is fascinating to me on a lot of levels because we had the horse racing here. We had the gaming machines here. And there was a big controversy involved with that. Remember? Of course, there's a big controversy about adding the words and everything else and what should and shouldn't happen. In case you forgot, here we go.
Of all the words and rhetoric and everything that has been said, I would hope that you would ask me about it, because I know what I said. I know what I stood up on this floor and said. I know what I said in the committee, and I know what was said with the people and all the industry that was behind the bill.
Right, there we have it. That's Representative Christy Perry. You remember her, she ran for Congress.
And I want to read from the Constitution. No activities permitted in subsection 1 shall employ any form of casino gambling, including but not limited to slot machines, or employ any electronic or electromechanical imitation or simulation of any form of casino gambling.
There you have it, Representative Ken Andrus, on the slot machines, the horse racing machines. Now, even if Prop 1 goes through, won't there be a court challenge to it? And horse racing itself in Idaho is legal, thanks to our great friend Ray Amaya for pointing that out to me. They just can't fund it. So the argument is you have these machines that come in. Now, the people that want to keep Idaho gambling free, the people from the tribes and the reservations, obviously, they have a stake in it, because you can go on the tribes and the reservations and gamble. So they don't want any competition. Of course, I don't know if either side says that, but to me, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, if you're cool with horse racing machines or casino machines, and maybe that's not doing it a correct service at the tracks, then you let it happen. If you're not, you vote no. And this will really tell us what type of state we are. Are we getting more socially libertarian, or are we still maintaining that good social conservatism?
Then we've heard we need to save the horse racing industry. My question to all you ladies and gentlemen here is, how many other industries do we want to help survive by allowing them to go into the gaming industry?
Now, that was Representative Vanderwood, and this was 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, when this issue came up.
We thought we were supporting a game of skill. It turns out that isn't what we got, and I don't blame anybody for that. But we do have to take responsibility. A mistake was made, and we need to fix it.
There we have it, Representative Luke Malik. So this has been going on for a long time. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO, you bring this back, the proponents say it's going to bring jobs. The opponents say it brings in gambling. Which is more important to you? R&R, good morning. You're on with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, R&R.
Hey, K. Melly. Couple things. I know from being in the horse world for 20 years over in Oregon that racing seems to be enjoyable, and I can see it. I've been to a few tracks, but the horses get broken down. It's sad. These horses get cold, and some of them just get shot, and if they go lame, they just become glue. And horse racing for money is a not to do. I know what the gambling's about. It does support it, because there's just the rigs they tow in cost upwards to $200,000, and the horses it's all about money. So horse racing in Idaho is legal, and it's been going on since, when I read history, it's been going on since the 1830s and 40s, but not for gambling. And then the marijuana issue, it concerns me that the sheriff, I know he's close to you, close enough you can sit and talk to him. Donahue, they've got to know as well as you do that there's a lot of marijuana coming over from Huntington, and yet nobody encroaches on it. And we got every border, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and Canada. It's all the way around. So if you can get those 3 dachshunds a year is deputized in yourself, I think you got a chance to keep it out. Otherwise, it's coming in, and that hurts my feelings. But,
You're saying we can't stop?
I say we can stop it, but not without you and your 3 dachshunds being deputized, deputy dog.
Well,
You got yourself a full-time job.
not if we built it. Not if we built a wall.
Well, I'll get out there. I used to lay brick and concrete block.
I like that idea of building a wall between us and Oregon to keep the pot out.
Yeah, but go over to Burns to do it. There's so much.
I've been to Burns. Ooh.
Ooh. I like it. Keep smiling, deputy dog.
All right. It's always a pleasure to talk to R&R, and we love the mountain people. We are the mountain people, so God bless.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436. 580-KIDO.
Well, the operators are not giving any interviews at this point on the closure, but those very close to the industry tell us it is just devastating, not only for them, but the entire state's economy.
It's Idaho economy that's going to be hurt.
Myron Amsden is on the Idaho Horse Council. He says now that racing is done at Le Bois,
that has a trickle-down effect for all the smaller tracks.
That's because Le Bois was the purse generator for them.
They relied on the funding from Le Bois to help their tracks.
Amsden says the horse racing industry supports many other industries as well. He says it's not just them suffering from the loss of this closure.
It's the feed, the motels, the people that are traveling, eating. It's just really a trickle-down effect. Those horses are going to be shipped out of state. That's income that Idaho doesn't get. They're going to Wyoming, California. Some of the people with one horse will probably just sell it. That's devastating for our horse economy.
Amsden says he also feels sorry for the kids who will not have the chance to grow up watching live horse racing. Some who may have decided they wanted to get involved in the industry.
We'll never have another person like Gary Stevens, a Hall of Fame jockey, was from right here in Boise. That'll never happen again in Idaho. The dreams of those youth, that's gone. It's never coming.
And there we have it. So we've seen and heard the commercials. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Maybe it's not a big issue. Maybe there aren't many who do the horse racing. Maybe you go to the track to watch the Kentucky Derby. In the old days in Idaho, horse racing was bigger. They still race horses. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, does this impact your world enough to make a decision one way or the other? To me, it's going to tell us how progressive Idaho has become or how still conservative socially we are. I'd love to get your thoughts next on the horse racing issue, the horse racing machines. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Joe Biden is in Las Vegas. Joe. Sleepy Joe Biden. We call him 1% Joe because he ran at least twice. I think 3 times. They say twice. I think he ran 3 times. And he never had more than 1%.
There you have it, the president over the weekend. Many of you did a tour and went to Elko to see the president. We'll take your calls on that as well. KIDO Talk Radio. Gary, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, hey, my wife and I went Friday. We went for the rally. There was so much energy in this rally. It was unbelievable. You know, you see all the stuff on the TV of rallies, and you get really energized from that. But if you haven't gone to a rally, it's just unbelievable. We got there. We're close to the hotel, so we walked over, and we were in line. But there were people who were there probably at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So a lot of people did not get in, but I think they estimated somewhere between 7,500 and 9,000 people that were there at the rally. There was people from all ages, all types of people were there. I mean, we had a lot of people from the Treasure Valley, which I spoke with. You know, there were miners, ranchers, a lot of Hispanic, there was Asian, a lot of young people. There was probably as many young people as there were older people. But everybody had a great time. The president was fantastic as usual, and he was great with the crowds. We got a lot of photos. everybody should at least attend these rallies and support our president and our country and the people in these other states that are vying for a lot of positions that are being overran by a lot of the Democrats, and they need a lot of support. But, Elko is only a population of about 18,000, and I think about 76 or so % are Republican there. So it was a great crowd. Everybody was pro-Trump. I didn't see any protesters at all at this rally while we were in line. So, but we had a great time. It was a great rally. We enjoyed it.
Well worth the trip.
Well worth the trip. It was only about 4.5 hour drive. Went over, Friday morning and stayed overnight, and, had, good time, visited the town and had some good food there. It was a fantastic place.
All right, Gary, we appreciate it, and thank you for the update.
Yeah, thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning.
And I want to read from the Constitution. No activities permitted in subsection 1 shall employ any form of casino gambling, including but not limited to slot machines, or employ any electronic or electromechanical imitation or simulation of any form of casino gambling.
Representative Ken Andrus talking about the horse racing machines when they were booted out 3 years ago. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Is this just a gateway to allowing more gambling here in the state of Idaho, like we see in Nevada and other places? Or why not bring back the horses? Let's talk about it next. Traffic and weather together.
It's Eric Gabbard.
And here's another thought. Why don't the cattlemen, the horsemen, create a racing organization like auto racing? In all forms of motorsports, there's a main title sponsor. You remember the Busch Series, the Winston Series, the Infinity Series, the Yellow Mellow Drag Series, and a point system where drivers get so many points per round they advance. Whoever has the most points at the end of the season wins the title. Of course, I don't know if you could do that with horse racing, but that is a good thought when you're thinking about how valuable is maintaining this industry to people here in Idaho. And unfortunately, when you see many farms being turned into subdivisions, we are gradually losing our way of life here in the Treasure Valley throughout the state of Idaho. Can we all just be dependent on the supermarkets? Look, I'll tell you, I'm a live off the land kind of guy. In other words, I go to the supermarket and live off the land. But without the farmers, without the ranchers, without the cattlemen, what type of state are we going to have? Is it more of a transactional state where you line up your debit card, you go into a store, you get what you want, and you leave? Where will the foundation be? And you have people that are wanting to vote yes for Prop 1, saying, look, horse racing is a vibrant part of our economy here. It means a great deal. It employs a lot of people. And we've had these machines here. What's the harm? We're going to give money to the schools. The schools are going to think this is the best ever. And all will be happy. Then you have the opponent saying, gambling against the Constitution. Let's face it, if this bill goes through, we're probably going to see a challenge in court. And the last time there was a challenge in court, the proponents of the horse racing machines lost. You just go back to that statement by Representative Andrus that said it's not in the Constitution. If that's the case, why are we having this? But how important is it to you? That's one issue. We're also talking about the caravan. Let's face it, if the Mexicans wanted to stop the caravan, the Mexican government, they would have stopped the caravan. If the Hondurans, the Guatemalans, the Nicaraguans, the whomever else, the Panamanians, wanted to stop these folks, they would have stopped them. The president sounding off today on Twitter saying it's unfortunate the government of Mexico can't do it. We had a gentleman calling in saying, look, we should send the Red Cross down there. Well, who's going to pay for the Red Cross? Yes, we are a compassionate country, but we can't morally, physically, literally bankrupt ourselves paying for the entire world now, can we? Now, you're not going to hear that with the media. They believe bringing these folks in is going to help the blue wave. Coming up next hour, we're going to check in with Lars Larson, and we'll get his thoughts on the blue wave. It looks like there's a red tsunami a-brewing that the media is not talking about? Well, we're going to share it with you next. Another reason why you should stay tuned. And here's another one. Another Western state very concerned about the Californians coming in and taking over. Are we next? Find out with me, Kevin Miller. Good morning.